Hello ladies and gentlemen, Forrest Wolfer here, and welcome back to another live stream. Today, we are continuing where we left off with Her Perfect Family. The last time, in the last part, for a bit of a quick recap, our story took place in the beginning of the story took place in the beginning, uh, during, during a graduation I'm guessing a university graduation, or it could be high school. I don't know. Either way, it is a graduation going on. But what should have been one of a family's most happiest days of their lives turns into horror. I guess you could say it turned into horror, as their daughter, as a young girl or woman, falls victim to a gunshot wound. Currently, in this part of the story, she is in a coma. And I'm just going to say for the record, for the most part, she will be in the coma. It's basically, this book is taking a bit of a page out of Misery's playbook, in that something that takes place uh, will make that person stay in this particular position for most, if not all, throughout the story. Okay, enough of me spoiling the story. Let's get right straight into it. Right. but anyway, but anyway, uh, when we last left off, we found out that Ed Hartley, the father in the story, appears to be lying about something. If you don't know what it is, we're gonna likely find out here shortly. But let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 17, The Private Investigator. So what do you think? Be honest, Sal. Matthews in his car, mobile clamped to his right ear as he watches Mel, ready to pull away ahead of him. He's holding up his breath, but she doesn't answer for a time, and so he plows on. I won't say yes if you hate the idea, but I think this could be a good thing for us. For Emily, I mean. We can tell her Daddy's going to help catch the bad person and she doesn't need to be afraid. More silence. Please say something, Sally. This is someone with a gun, Matt. I know, love. But I also know what I'm doing. And I can help them solve the case faster if I'm on board officially. But this isn't your problem, Matt. The whole thing really scares me. I understand, and I won't agree to anything until we've talked it through tonight. I just wanted you to know straight away about the approach. Look, I've gotta go. He lifts his hand as a signal to Mel that he'll follow her car. I love you, Sally. He means it. He really does. He just wishes he could make her not worry. I love you too. Matthew's just about to fire the ignition when he spots Amanda, the PR, leaving through the main doors. A thought suddenly sweeps in and he quickly steps out of the car. Amanda! Sorry to hold you up, but have you got a minute? She glances at her watch, frowning. I've got a meeting actually. Don't worry, won't take long. I just wanted to say thank you properly. How grateful I was for your support at the cathedral. You and Tom, keeping the students safe until the full team arrived. Oh, that. Right. She looks embarrassed. Well, to be honest, it wasn't my finest hour. I was pretty petrified, actually. Me too. She smiles at last. Seriously, I was sorry to ask that of you. Put you and Tom on the spot. But most people at the cathedral just boarded. You didn't. He won't mention that he knows she's having counseling. The Chancellor clearly shouldn't have shared that. No, well, we had the students to think of. She looks away for a moment. They were terrified too. And the other thing I wondered, he waits for her to look back at him, is how you feel about this final ceremony. If it goes ahead, will you be involved? Did I pick up back there that you have concerns? He pauses. Off the record. Oh, come on. She tilts her head. You and I both know that there's no such thing as off the record, Mr. Hill. Matthew, please. Matthew, please. I'm a press officer. I'm hardly going to speak out of turn, Matthew. Of course. He bites into his bottom lip and plunges on. But I'm going to be asking around. I'm going to find out anyway. So, is this senior management team very split? She takes in a long breath as if weighing something up. Look, it's no secret around campus that opinions are divided. Some badly want a morale boost to see us past this. Others think it's safer and easier to just bump it all. And you share the latter view? I didn't say that. He looks at her intently. It's okay to be nervous, you know. She lets out a long sigh. Is it? Our chancellor's thankfully made of stronger stuff. Her eyes look haunted for a moment, and Matthew remembers her in her smart black suit alongside the Marine as he barked instructions at them. As I say, I asked a lot of you, and if I remember they shepherded the chancellor out of a side door pretty quickly. Amanda glances around her again. Actually, there is something I should probably mention to you. Matthew's more curious now. Oh, nothing significant. Just something on my mind. It's just my sister Helen knows the family. Gemma's mother, they live in the same area. Helen asked me to fix good seats for them in the cathedral. We're really not supposed to do that. The demand for seats is a hot potato every year. Anyway, my sister went on and on about it, and so in the end I did. Wangled for the Hartleys to be right up the front. It's why they saw it all so clearly. I feel bad about that now. Right. So you know the family? No, not me, not personally. But my sister's fond of the mother. Helen asked me to give some tips about the uni when Gemma first applied. And this last year she asked if I could help Gemma with the work experience. I'm afraid I fobbed her off. We're always so busy. I feel terrible about that now. She looks crestfallen. Well, you couldn't know. He smiles. Everyone hated babysitting trainees when he was in the force. Then he remembers that Mel's waiting. Oh, and just one more thing. More personal. I read in the paper that the university is offering a counseling to students and staff. He's keen to be diplomatic even if the chancellor wasn't. Yes, that's right. We have a very good team. It's just my daughter's having nightmares. She was there that day, on the high street with my wife and heard too much. I was wondering if you could recommend someone. A counselor from your team? I'd be happy to pay privately. What age is she? 4. Poor thing. Amanda's eyes soften. Well, our team specializes in student and adult counseling, but I know they have contacts who work with children. There were a few younger siblings at the cathedral. I can have a word with our head of student counseling if you like. Would you? Matthew hands over his personal card. Email and mobile are on there. As I say, I'm happy to pay privately, but would love a recommendation. We need someone good. No problem. Happy to help. And about the seating, do you want me to come clean with the chancellor? It's just I'll be in a bit of a hot water, but I'd rather tell him myself if it's going to be an issue. I've been a bit worried your investigation might question why they were up the front in the VIP section. Matthew realizes it had never occurred to him to wonder. He looks down at the ground and then back at Amanda. No, I don't think it's important. Mum's the word. Thank you. She looks relieved. And try not to worry. If the ceremony does go ahead, Dear Sanders will keep everyone safe. She's good. Very good. Amanda just nods and looks at her watch again. Sorry, but I really ought to be going. The meeting. 20 minutes later, as Matthew finally pulls up at the police station, Mel's waiting on the steps, scrolling through her phone. So what happened to you, Matt? On the phone to Sally? You should be a detective. Mel laughs. Yeah, I spoke briefly to Sal, but I also had a quick word with the PR Amanda. We were right. She's trying to be diplomatic, typical PR, but she clearly doesn't agree with the final ceremony going ahead. She's more shaken than the Chancellor realizes. Interesting. And what about Sally? What does she think about my offer? We're going to talk tonight. My guess says she'll want me in a bulletproof vest minimum. At least you're skinny enough to carry it off. Mel's smiling as she leads them through the front office, using her security card to take them into an inner corridor. I look pregnant again in mine. Matthew's turned to laugh. It was a standing joke when they last liaised over a case. Mel was in the first stages of her pregnancy and was so large that everyone, Matthew included, and when I said first I meant final stages, was sure she was having twins. She wasn't. It's funny to see her tiny again, her son at home, separate and growing up fast. He follows her to the lift, thinking also of Emily and hoping that Amanda may help source a good counselor. He wonders how anyone would even approach this, with a child so young. You alright, Matt? You look distracted. Mel's turned her head. I'm fine. No, sorry, mind in overdrive. One thing. Did you ever wonder why the Hartleys were right up front for the ceremony? Mel frowns. No, just assumed they got lucky. Why? Is something worrying you? Something relevant? No, I just wonder if it was better or worse for them. They've seen it all so clearly. Mel considers this. Better to be nearer, I'd say, given the crush you described. At least they got to Gemma pretty quickly. Yeah, that's what I think. Matthew pauses. He'll tell Amanda this if she gets in touch about the counseling, that she shouldn't feel bad about the favor. Might ease his guilt over asking so much of her after the shooting. Come on then, let's do this. He takes in a breath and next they're moving swiftly through the CID offices to the small suite of the interview rooms where Ed Hartley's waiting for them. Mel leaves Matthew momentarily. He assumes to explain to her team why she's leading on the chat with Ed Hartley and taking him through too. He waits outside the door of the office but can't quite make out what's being said, though he imagines the eye rolling. It's not a formal interview, but most inspectors would still bump this to a sergeant, though Mel's never been one for protocol. Next, they're sweeping into the small square room to find Gemma's father drinking coffee at the central table. He stands. I've been waiting for ages. Sorry, we were at the university. We got held up. Do I need my solicitor? Why do you need a solicitor, Mr. Hartley? This is just a chat. Right. That's what Matthew said. Just an informal chat. He sits down as they take up their own seats opposite. So you won't be recording this or anything? This is just a chat, like I said. You agreed to meet me. You're not under arrest. So why don't you tell me about your first marriage? And why you're worried that your first wife might be in some way involved in Gemma's shooting? I didn't say that. I just said that it was a coincidence that I met Laura, my first wife, in a cathedral. So that was sort of preying on my mind, and I thought I should have told you. So have you checked things out? Is Laura okay? Is she with her parents or is she at the clinic? Matthew bites into his lip, wondering how Mel will play this. Your first wife is missing from the clinic, Mr. Hartley. Mel pauses as Edward Hartley's face pales. The clinic's under investigation for breaches of standards and security. Cost-cutting cock-ups according to the local media. Upshot is right now we have absolutely no idea where she is. Which is why I think you'd better tell me absolutely everything, don't you? About her condition, how you parted, when you last heard from her, and whether she has any reason whatsoever to wish you or your daughter harm. Chapter 18. The Father Before. It came right out of the blue, Laura's illness. Like a trip on the pavement, your face suddenly smashed onto concrete. And for Ed, it was the speed of the unraveling that shocked him most. He and Laura had been married just 6 months. I also realized. I thought you should probably get it to where you can see the live chat go on, so that way if you mess up, so that way you got something to see if you miss it. He and Laura had been married just 6 months. They had recently moved to Canada, where her parents lived, and her father had given him a job, handling the marketing for his building company. It was going well. No, better than well. They were truly happy. Thursday night, a month into his new job, they went to bed around 11 as usual. Friday morning he got up early for a pee, and suddenly it was as if someone flipped a switch on his life. That trip on the pavement. By the time he padded back to the doorway of their bedroom, Laura was bolt upright in bed, first staring at him, her eyes wild, and then screaming in apparent terror. He felt a spike of adrenaline, the rush of his own mirrored fear. An intruder? He spun his head that way and that, trying to work out where, who, what the hell he was dealing with. He grabbed a candlestick from the top of a bookcase in the hallway and swung his head and his weapon. Left, right, left, right. But there was nothing. No shadow. No sound of footsteps. Nothing. He checked the hall in the second bedroom. Again, nothing. By the time he was back in the doorway of their room, Laura had stopped screaming but was still staring directly at him, eyes bulging with alarm. It was as if she was looking at him but also through him without proper recognition. His next thought was a night terror. He'd read about that. Maybe she was actually still asleep and wasn't seeing him at all. There was a feature in one of the Sundays once. It said that sometimes sleepwalkers move around with their eyes wide open. It's all right. It's all right. I'm here. What happened? What's happened? What is it? What did you see? It's just a dream, Laura. I'm here. You're safe. He was still in the doorway, but now took a step into the room. No, no! You stay right there. Don't you dare move! So she could hear him, see him. He didn't understand. His head spun. Next, she picked up the phone by the bed, and while it was dialing, I'm calling the police. The police? He stepped back into the doorway. What's happened? I can't see anyone, Laura. There's no sign of anyone. Who are you? Still she was staring at him, unblinking. I told you not to move. I mean it. I'm trained. I can take you down. What do you mean? Who am I? Put the phone down. This isn't funny, Laura. Not for 1 minute did he actually think this was a joke, and he regretted saying that instantly, but he didn't know what else to say, what else to do. Christ, she was actually dying. No, no, don't ring the police. You're perfectly safe, I promise you. Just look at me, please. You're safe. She seemed to pause as if changing her mind, puzzled rather than terrified. His mind was still spinning while hers seemed in free fall. She pressed the end button on the phone and just continued to stare at him. She tilted her head to the side as if trying to better compute what she was seeing. Next, and most ominously, she picked up a torch, tucked alongside the bed in case of power cuts, and held it as her own weapon. Instinctively, Ed lowered his hand holding the candlestick, but Laura did not copy. She clucked the torch high in the air. What do you want? Her eyes were still wide, unnatural. I'm not afraid to use this, and I'm warning you. I'm trained, and I'm stronger than I look. I can take you down. This time he said nothing for a while. Very gently and slowly he put the candlestick back on the top of the bookcase. Maybe if he just waited she would calm down. Wake up properly. She watched him. He watched her. They both waited for maybe a minute. What have you done with my husband? Look, I don't know what this is, but you must have been dreaming, darling. It's me. It's Ed. Look at me. You're safe. It's me. I'm going to ask you one more time. What have you done with my husband? He felt a strange pull in his stomach, his mind moving to a new place. He took in her wide eyes and her pale skin, her trembling hand. Laura was clearly unwell, in some kind of psychotic state. What had brought it on, he had no notion. Night terror, sleepwalking, or whatever. All he knew for sure was that he wasn't equipped to deal with this, not on his own. He needed a minute to snap out of whatever this was, but how to do that safely, without making it worse. Okay, so how about we get someone to help? Someone to come and help. What he was actually thinking was that he needed to buy some time. He was still assuming this would pass soon, that she would wake up properly and very soon and this peculiar state would pass. Shall we ring the doctor, Laura? Doctor? Why would I need a doctor? How dare you? You come into my home. Okay, so how about your mother? Why don't you phone your mother? Get your mother to come over here. Help us sort this out. He was wondering, in fact, whether he could phone the doctor secretly once Laura's mother arrived. Laura's parents were just 10 minutes away by car. If this passed, they could explain when her mother arrived, and then see what the doctor advised. He was remembering now that his father once had a bladder infection that went untreated and caused him to hallucinate. He thought there were locusts on the carpet. Maybe this was something like that? Some kind of infection causing her to see things? You need to tell me what you've done with my husband. I am your husband, Laura. Look at me. She raised the torch higher. Okay, let's just ring your mother. Get her to come here, alright? She glanced to the left and right as if thinking. No, the police. I think we need the police here. Let's get your mother here first. And then if she thinks we need the police, fair enough. I promise you I'm not going to come into the room, and I'm certainly not going to hurt you. You're not in danger. It's me. It's Ed. He was looking at the heavy torch in her hand. What on earth was going on in her mind, he had no idea, but he needed to calm this all down. Keep the police out of it. Could disorientation from a bad dream last this long? She had never talked in her sleep, walked in her sleep. But if it was some kind of infection, she would need antibiotics. He could phone the doctor discreetly once her mother was here. Now at last she was dialing the phone again. She pressed it against her ear. Mom, listen. I need you to come over urgently. Something really terrible has happened. A man's here in the house. He looks just like Ed, but he isn't Ed. I don't know what he's done with Ed. He won't tell me. There was a pause, and Ed could just make out the confusion and panic in her mother's raised voice on the other end of the line. I don't know, Mum. I don't know what's going on. Could you just get in the car and come over here right now? Otherwise, I need to call the police. Another pause. No, you can't speak to him. I can't let him leave in the room. Let him in the room. It's too dangerous. And then she just hung up. She raised the torch again and continued to stare. She'll be in here in 10 minutes. You don't move, you hear me? You don't move a single muscle, or I'll take you down. Chapter 19. The Daughter Before. Waiting for Godot. Did Samuel Beckett truly write for performance, or did his work pose restrictions for actors and directors? Discuss. I don't understand it. I'm never late. I'm always careful. I've been on the pill since I was 17, and I've never had any problems or any serious scares. Why now? Why a scare now? As if I haven't got enough going on. Okay, so I need not to panic here. It could be stress. 10 days over could still be stress. I read about that. Stress can mess up your cycle big time. Hey, Amelia, how you doing tonight? And I have been stressed. The truth is, I haven't written anything about S for a few weeks because it's literally been changing daily, let alone weekly. At first, he was so lovely and so honorable. He backed right off, left it entirely up to me. He said that he had really strong feelings for me, but didn't want to put me in a difficult situation. I decided at first that it was best to write it off as a mistake. Just that one time. But the more I saw him and realized how he was struggling with his feelings, the more I kept thinking about him. About how different it felt with him, compared with A. I've only just realized what an idiot I've been writing his name out in full. I'm having to sweep through and change that. I mean, if A does ever get into my computer, he'll do a search for his name, won't he? Fake essay titles won't be enough. Why didn't I think of that before? Anyway, back to S. I mean, I do know it's a cliche, my tutor, and I was embarrassed and thrown at first by what happened, but it's felt so completely different of being around someone older. It's so nice. The maturity, I mean. The proper talking. And yes, I admit that he's married. And it's complicated and technically very, very wrong, but there's no way I would be seeing him if he wasn't, in fact, separated. The thing is, his marriage has been dead for a very long time. Years and years. He's tried to leave several times, but she's apparently a little fragile, and he's a really decent and kind bloke, so he's trying to help her build her confidence and help her settle into a new job and a new life before they split up formally. So they're still living in the same house, but more as a house share, not as a proper couple. Sleeping apart, obviously, more more as a front. It was knowing that this decided things for me. I mean, it's not like starting something up with someone who's going to stay married or is happily married. It's a question of timing when they separate. Not an if, but a when. So it was my decision to sleep with him again. He didn't push me. He's not like A. He never loses his temper and gets wound up. He listens to me. He talks to me. I think that's what I love the most of all. We talk things through. It's not like at home with Mum with her pottering off into the kitchen every time things get tricky. S listens. So yes, we're a couple, albeit a secret one for now. And spending time with S, however briefly and however complicated, has made me realize just how immature and inappropriate A's behavior has always been. I shared just a few details with S and he was horrified. He said that no way is that kind of behavior acceptable, not ever, and I need to be careful. That A is controlling and very, very bad news. The only very tricky thing is I can't confide in any of my friends because the situation is so sensitive for now. Oh my word. Why does everything have to be so damn complicated in my life? I don't even know why I'm still writing this diary in the fake essay folders and using initials. Surely A can't remotely access my computer. Can he? Am I just being paranoid? No idea. Anyway, for the record, I got a first for my Alice's Adventures in Wonderland essay, and that means I'm on target for a first overall. So proud. Mom will be thrilled. And as promises me, there's absolutely no way he would grant favors. I earned the mark on pure merits, which is exactly the way I want it. He says I have a really bright future, whatever I decide to do, teaching or going on into the media or communications. So I just need this period to come, please. Enough of a scare. Next diary entry, I will be sharing my relief. I mean, I can't be pregnant. I just can't. Really saying, I'm doing good. Good to hear, Amelia. Good to hear you're doing good. Chapter 20. The Father. Now. Ed takes in the wide-eyed stares, the matching skepticism on both their faces. Matthew Hill and D.I. Sanders. You're seriously telling us that your first wife believes you're some kind of a clone? That you're a replica who's replaced the real Ed Hartley? D.I. Sanders' tone is unnaturally high. She glances at Matthew, eyebrows raised. This reaction, this precise look on their faces, is the very reason he never tells anyone. Look, I know how it sounds. Trust me, I was every bit as thrown and as skeptical as you are right now. But it's a genuine medical condition. Very rare, but very real. Kopker's syndrome. Look it up. Ed watches the pair exchange another look of sheer astonishment. Google it. Matthew's taking his phone from his pocket. How are you spelling that? Here, look. For speed, Ed taps it out on his own phone and holds up the screen to show them. He waits while they put in searches on their own mobiles and watches them closely as they both read, frowning as they skim between pages. He remembers his own disbelief when he first sat across the desk from the specialist who diagnosed Laura. He jiggles his right foot up and down. He wants them on side, but also wants them to hurry up, to get on with it. Surely they must see now that all he needs, urgently, is official help to check that Laura's okay, that she's with her parents somewhere, that she's in no way involved with what's happened to Gemma. Grief. I've never even heard of this. D.I. Sanders is wide-eyed. So it's mostly women? Apparently. Look, can you just phone Canada, the police in Canada? Adam crosses his legs. I just want to know where Laura is, that's all. She's probably with her parents, don't you think? If she's been discharged, we just need the new address. They've obviously moved. D.I. Sanders now looks up at him directly. First, you need to talk us through exactly what happened. I need to understand what we're dealing with here before I speak again to the authorities in Canada. She's checking her watch, probably working out the time difference. Ed takes in a deep breath. It feels so alien, talking about this, saying it out loud. He's spent so many years burying this deep inside himself. It's almost as if he's made it not real. As if Laura is right and he isn't Ed Hartley. That this is the backstory of a different person. Who are you? What have you done with my husband? It feels suddenly very hot in the room. Ed pulls out his shirt collar, wishing he was in a t-shirt. He looked up at the window in the corner of the room, and, for a moment, it's like time travel. He's right back in his kitchen in Canada. He slumped at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, listening to the shouting from upstairs as Laura's mother tries to calm her daughter down. Go look for yourself, Mummy. It's not Ed. I don't know what he's done with Ed. He won't tell me. We have to find Ed. We have to find the real Ed. He remembers a shadow cast on the wall from a plant on the windowsill. Laura loved houseplants. Green fingers. Why is he remembering that? We had to call in a doctor, then a specialist. Laura moved in with her parents, but she got worse. Became more and more difficult to manage. At first, we all assumed it was something temporary, a psychotic episode that would pass. But every time we tried her seeing me, every time I walked into the same room, she became hysterical. She couldn't understand why other people couldn't see what she was seeing. She insisted I wasn't me. It took quite a long time to get the proper diagnosis. It was all horrible. At one point she seemed to be sectioned. They had to sedate her and take her away in an ambulance. It broke her mother's heart. And this was how long ago? More than 20 years ago. I was 27. We were newly married, just 6 months. He watches Matthew rake his fingers through his hair. Trust me, it was like being in a movie. Totally unreal. I couldn't talk to people because it sounded so bizarre, and I didn't want Laura to be labeled because I thought she would recover, and I didn't want it to blight her future, her chance of getting work, teaching music, and so on. I honestly thought she would get well, and she didn't. No, it all got worse. Ed lets out a long sigh. He's wondering how much detail he should go into. Laura's drama, smashing up her parents' house, because she didn't recognize it. You remember Laura's mother crying down the phone when they had to call an ambulance to have Laura sedated and taken to a special unit. By this stage, she was uncontrollable, furious that no one would believe her, accusing them of being in on it all. So you understand now why I just wanted to show that that Laura is with her parents, and she's okay, accounted for in Canada. I mean, when did you last have contact with her? What's her condition now? And has she threatened you ever, Mr. Hartley? Do you think she's in danger too? To your family. To your family. D.I. Sanders has her hair pen poised to make notes. You realize you should have told us all this from the very beginning. Laura is still not violent. Wait, Laura is ill, not violent. I thought she was still under supervision at the clinic. There's no way I believed she could have involved. I don't. Ed feels his body slump. He closes his eyes. And Rachel, your second wife, knows nothing of this. He feels tears. He feels close to tears now. It's unbearable to imagine Rachel's reaction. He knows that it looks terrible, but not to have come clean. I should have told Rachel. I do know that. He doesn't want to share just how bad things got when he returned to England. No job, nowhere to live. It looks. He lied to friends and said that the marriage just broke up over an affair. There were antidepressants, sleeping tablets. He didn't recognize he would ever be happy again. For a few months and months, he lived in a hermit, refusing friends' attempts to get the money out. And then finally, they called him into a dinner party. And there she was, this extraordinary woman in the black red velvet dress, Rachel. It was like a life. It was like a light going back on in his life. I was a coward. I was selfish. I should have told Rachel, but I didn't want a pity pony. Say, you wasn't cursed? Alright. So Laura, she wasn't cured? She still has this syndrome? There is no cure. She's been in and out of the clinic ever since her parents are wealthy. They pay private treat private treatment. She excuse me. She has spells when she was a little better, and spells when she did really bad at them. Thinking she might have schizophrenia, but I too was never continued with that. Hmm. Have you kept in contact with her parents? I did at first, for a few years, but they said it was here to cut ties for Laura, and for me too. Another question I have to ask, D.I. Sanders, is sitting up straight. Did Hartley ever own or used a gun in Mrs. Hartley's uh, vehicle? He knew this was coming. Wait, wait, has Laura ever owned or used a gun, Mr. Hartley? He knew this was coming. He shuts his eyes again. They're going to understand it. However, he tightens it, and they're going completely misunderstanding. Well, Deanna Sanders is back again looking at her watch. Laura is a violent person. She's unwell and she became unwell. That's not what I said. Look, she was in the army for 3 years. The the Canadian army. She feels the pinch of their shock. The army? Are you serious telling me she's got military training? Dear Sanders put both hands on her head. Oh, dear Lord. I can't believe this. She turns to Matthew and then back to Ed. You have an ex-wife with a serious mental breath condition who's used to handling guns and you don't tell us until today. D.I. Sanders pushes her chair back from the table, stands and puts her phone to her ear. I'm sorry, but this is not what you think. Let's see. Mel puts her hand up to silence, and as she waits for the phone to connect, waiting for to the door. Alright. Let's see here. Alright. And there you go. Alright. Hold on 1 second here. Wait a minute. Hmm. Actually, I could have. Hmm. Hmm. Honestly, hmm. I'm just gonna read the last set of pages. Actually, hold on a second. I'm gonna read something to drink first. Anyway, I got some a drink with a tea over here. Give me 1 second. Alright. Alright. I'm gonna go ahead and read the last 2 pages there again. Because I honestly don't remember reading this, so I'm gonna read it again just in case. I'll go ahead and, because I do remember reading the paragraph that goes into the page, so, talk about how, talk about how, just move on to where, you see right here, I'm gonna start on that paragraph, so that way we all know where I'm at here when I look at this. So you understand now why I just want to know that Laura's with her parents. That she's okay. Accounted for in Canada, I mean. When did you last have contact with her? What's her condition now? And has she threatened you ever, Mr. Hartley? Do you think she's a danger to you? To your family? D.I. Sanders has her pen poised to make notes. You realize you should have told us all of this from the very beginning. Laura is ill, not violent. I thought she was still under supervision at the clinic. There's no way I believed she could be involved. I still don't. Ed feels his body slump. He closes his eyes. And Rachel, your second wife, knows nothing of this? He feels close to tears now. It's unbearable to imagine Rachel's reaction. He knows that it looks terrible, not to have come clean. I should have told Rachel. I do know that. He doesn't want to share just how bad things got when he returned to England. No job, nowhere to live. He lied to friends, said that the marriage just broke up over an affair. There were antidepressants, sleeping tablets. He didn't think he would ever be happy again. For months and months he lived like a hermit, refusing friends' attempts to get him to go out. And then finally they talked him into a dinner party. And there she was, this extraordinary woman in this beautiful red velvet dress. Rachel. It was like a light going on back in his life. Going back on in his life. I was a coward. I was selfish. I should have told Rachel, but I wanted a clean slate. I didn't want a pity party. So, Laura, she wasn't cured? She still has this syndrome? There is no cure. She's been in and out of the clinic ever since. Her parents are wealthy. They pay for private treatment. She has spells when she's a little she has spells when she's a little better. And spells when she's really bad. They think she may have schizophrenia too, but I was never convinced of that. And you've kept in contact with her parents? I did at first, for a good few years. But then they said it was better to cut ties. It was better to cut ties. For Laura. And for me, too. Another question I have to ask. D.I. Sanders is setting up straight. Has Laura ever owned or used a gun, Mr. Hartley? He knew this was coming. He shuts his eyes again. They're going to misunderstand. However, he explains that they're going to completely misunderstand. Well, D.I. Sanders is again looking at her watch. Laura isn't a violent person. She's unwell. She became unwell. That's not what I asked. Look, okay. She was in the army for 3 years. The Canadian Army. He feels the punch of their shot. The Army? Are you seriously telling me she's gotten military training? D.I. Sanders puts both hands on her head. Oh dear Lord, I don't believe this. She turns to Matthew, then back to Ed. You have an ex-wife with a serious mental health condition who's used to handling guns, and you don't tell us until today. D.I. Sanders pushes her chair back from the table, stands and puts her phone to her ear. I'm sorry, but it's not what you think. She was never a soldier. Not really. Mel puts her hand up to silence Ed as she waits for the phone to connect, walking to the door. Ed stares instead at Matthew Hill, who remains seated. Laura signed up after the university, but she was a musician, Matthew. It was for the music. She was never a proper soldier. She only joined for the music. Oh, okay then. Chapter 21. The Mother. I have no idea what's holding your dad up. I put down the brush on Gemma's hospital locker and stare at it. I don't expect he'll be long. I've asked him to bring in a new book for me to read to you. I sit very still, fighting the urge to watch her eyelids for the tiniest flicker, and it's as if my body is absorbing the silence, the stillness. Sometimes it makes me want to cry, this vacuum that seems to seep into my bones, my very blood, and so, to challenge it, I reach forward to pick the brush up again, stroking the engraved pattern on the silver, enjoying the feeling of the dips and the bumps on my fingers, my flesh. It's not a very practical brush, truth be told, but it's so very beautiful, so special. It's a child's brush, real silver with especially soft natural bristles, a gift from my mother to Gemma when she was small. Of course, Gemma stopped using it many years back, needing modern brushes designed to retain heat, to tease and to tame. But she kept this brush with its matching mirror on her dressing table for show, and so I got Ed to fetch it from home. For my sake, really. When Gemma was little, she absolutely hated having her hair washed. Oh my word, the battle over the tangles afterwards. I used legs of conditioner to try to ease things, but they were still grumbling and moaning every single time. Ow! Ow! You're hurting me! You're really, really hurting me! And so I would use a comb for the tangles first, holding the hair in sections, and try my best to shock absorb the pulling, and when that battle was finally over, no more comb! Have we finished with the comb, Mummy? I'd switch to Granny's brush as a signal that the tangles were gone. Then I'd brush through her hair, stroke after gentle stroke, until Gemma was calm again. She would close her eyes and I would watch her shoulders relax. And I would brush and brush and brush. Of course, her hair has no tangles now that she can't move. Never moves. So I used Granny's brush, hoping she could feel the softness of it, that it might somehow soothe her, calm her, trigger a memory that might will her to come back, to come home, to come back. I run my fingers across the soft bristles, enjoying the sensation on my flesh. I think of my mother, sitting by the Christmas tree when Gemma opened this present, rushing between us all to make us check our reflections in the matching mirror. Me, Ed, Granny. She was really good at presents, my mom. Even when we had so little money after Dad left and she had to work 2 jobs to keep us afloat, she'd come up with treasures for me on my birthday. Something homemade, an outfit for a favorite doll, or a trail of riddles she'd made up herself, leading to a special box of chocolates. Amazing how she found the time and the patience after everything she went through. I looked back across the hospital cubicle at Gemma, motionless in the bed. Her laptop's on the bedside cabinet. They sent it over this morning. A favor. Nothing relevant in it, the police say. I've looked at some of the photo files, but have found it much harder than I expected. I can't find the photo of her in that pink dress, and so the laptop's just sitting there alongside her, as if it's waiting for Gemma to emerge from a nap and start tapping away. I stare at her closed eyes and think again of my mother. All the stories I told Gemma about my own childhood, about her grandfather, her gran. Did I do the right thing? I think so. What good would it do to hurt people you love with a past you can't challenge, and you can't change? And it wasn't all invented. The stories from my early childhood were real, precious. My father making me a rocking crib for a favorite doll, reading me stories at bedtime, building a hutch for my first rabbit. All those things really did happen, Gemma. I let out a sigh and checked my watch. Where is he? Why so long with the police? I pictured D.I. Sanders and did a tightening in my stomach. I realized that I really must speak to her about that odd woman who bothered me a while back, just to exclude her. Damn it. Maybe I should just come clean with Ed first about the stupid private investigator I hired. Why I worried that he was having an affair. Maybe it will be better to face his disappointment in me than all this worry and this guilt. If I could just persuade him not to make a scene, not here, not with all this going on. And now, suddenly, I sense something happening outside the cubicle. I can just see the elbow of the police guard, sitting beyond the window onto the main ward. Ever since the awful scene with Alex, we keep the blinds at a careful angle. The slides closed enough to keep some privacy, but with enough tilt to let me see what's going on out in the main ward. The guard normally sits just to the left of our window onto the ward. They normally change shirts at lunchtime. I know most of them by sight, but not by name. This is the tall guy, friendly. I can see that his arm's moving. He's standing up. I can hear him talking to someone. It shouldn't have been brought up here. No gifts. Strictly no packages. We said no packages. His tones clipped across, and I can just make out that he's taking his radio from his pocket. A shiver runs through my body. I remember what happened with Alex. I stand up too, wishing Edward was here. Where is he? Why is Ed taking so long? Right. Put it down. On the floor. The police guard raised his voice. Put it down now, please. Can everyone listen up? I need you all to stay calm, but I need everyone to keep back from this package while I call for some help. Uh-oh. Chapter 22. The Private Investigator. Matthew's listening to Mel on the phone to her contact in Canada. She's pacing as if wearing a hole in the floor will somehow absorb her anger at Ed Hartley for keeping so much from them. She's listening what she needs. The parents' address. Is Laura with them? If not, urgent checks on her passport. Has she traveled? Is there any way she could have flown to the UK? And every now and then Mel pauses to listen, and Matthew is praying she's good in cooperation. Liaison through foreign forces can be slow and frustrating, not through lack of will, but lack of resources. Everyone always so stretched with their own caseload. He feels his phone vibrate in his pocket just as Mel tells her contact that she'll have to ring back. Has another call coming from her team. Matthew checks his own screen. It's Sally. He wonders for a second whether to message that he'll call her straight back, but he sees only now that he's missed a couple of texts from her while dealing with that Hartley. He puts the phone up to his ear, still watching Mel, who's taking her new call. It's horrible. Horrible, Matthew. You need to come home now. Right away. I don't know what to do. Sal's voice is a near hysterical. I thought it was from you. I thought it was a surprise. I would never have let her open it if I didn't think it was from you. What have I done? Sally, you need to slow down. What's happened? A parcel turned up. I thought it was a surprise from you. A gift. There was a card which looked as if it was from you, so I let her open it. Oh, Matthew, I let her open it. So what is it, Sally? What's in the parcel? His heart's thumping in his chest, and he raises his hand in a stop sign to signal to Mel that there's a crisis. But instead of ending the call, Mel pumps the signal straight back at him. An emergency of her own? I'll get a bomb squad just in case, Mel is saying. She moves her free hand from the stop sign at the top of her head, her posture of disbelief. Matthew's heart is now pounding. Sally, hold on 1 second. I'm getting some advice this end. It may be important. He listens again to Mel's side of her conversation. Right. So is it possible to evacuate the ward? She pauses, closing her eyes. Do what you can until I speak to the hospital board. Bring you straight back. Matthew feels a new punch to his gut. Bomb squad. Right, I'm back. So what's in the parcel, Sally? You need to describe it to me. Any wire? Anything like a battery? And where is it now? It's a doll, Matthew. But it has blood coming out of it. She's crying now. It's disgusting. Jeez. Did Emily see it? Where's Emily? In the playroom. She saw it. Yes. I told her it was a Halloween joke. A mistake. It's all I could think of on the spot. But she's really upset, Matthew. Right. So where's the doll in the box? Here, in the kitchen. Okay. Did you hear me before? Can you see any wires? Anything like a battery in the box? No, I don't think so. Nothing like that, just the doll. Right. You need to get out of the house, Sally. Leave the doll in the box there in the kitchen. Don't touch it again. Clean your hands and take Emily out to the summer house. Matthew's mind is in overdrive as he listens to the water running. They're lucky that their cottage has a long garden. The summer house has a good stretch from the building. Safe distance. It's good there's no obvious wires. All the same. Are the neighbors in? Your mom? Is she home? Sally's mother lives just 2 doors along the road that's thatched cottages. No, she's out shopping. We're the only ones home. Good, good. Tell Emily it's a game. Take some toys to the summer house and wait for me there. Leave the doll in the box. Don't touch it, okay? Go now, right away. You're scaring me, Matthew. I'm sorry, darling, but just do as I say, okay? It's just a precaution. Playing it safe. I'm on this. It's going to be okay. I'm on my way to you. It's going to be all right. There's a pause. It sounds like Sally's crying. Matthew badly needs to speak to Mel but can't bear to ring off. Is your phone well charged, Sal? He waits while she checks the screen. 60%. Right. Stay on the line. Get Emily and let me talk to her as you move outside, okay? Okay. Matthew can hear Sally calling Emily through, but she's moved the phone away from her face. He can't make everything out. There's quite a pause, and then at last he can hear his daughter's voice in his ear. Daddy, I got a doll, but it's broken. It's not nice. I don't like it. Yeah, Mommy told me. Don't worry about that, Princess. There's been a mistake. It was the wrong doll sent to the wrong house. Isn't that silly? We'll get you a better doll. It's a nice day, so I'm going to finish work early and meet you in the summer house for a game. What game? I want to watch television. I'm going to let you choose the game, but you need to be a good girl for Mommy, honey. Can you do that for Daddy? Be a good girl and wait in the summer house for me. All right. Mommy says we need to hurry. Will you be along, Daddy? No, I won't be long, darling. Put Mommy back on. There's a crackling noise, and for a horrible moment, Matthew fears his daughter has dropped the phone. Sorry, it's me. It's Sally's voice again. We're in the garden, nearly there. How long will you be? Half an hour tops. I'll get some people to come out. Check out the doll and the package. You need to ring off. Save your battery. You may hear sirens, but that's just to make sure no one goes near the house. This is going to be okay, Sally. He takes a deep breath. I love you. I'm going to make this work, okay? Okay. She rings off, but he keeps the phone pressed to his ear. He wants to add that he's going to work with Mel and he's not going to rest. No bloody stone unturned until he's found the bastard who frightened his family. How dare they? How dare they? What's happened, Max? What's happened, Matt? Mel has stepped forward, looking right into his face. Overheard bits. You got a parcel too? At home? Yep. Some kind of doll. With blood. Nasty, but not a bomb? No explosives. Wires? Nothing obvious. Right. We play safe. There's a package on Gemma Hartley's ward too. Unopened. They're sending in a sniffer dog first. They're moving patients, but it's too difficult to move Gemma. Too near the package. Too dangerous. And what about her mother? She's refusing to leave. She's staying with Gemma. Matthew puts his hand to his mouth. I have to go, Mel. I have to get home. Of course. I'll get a tip to your house, too. Get going. I'll ring you en route. I'm on this. It's going to be alright, Matt. Chapter 23. Lemon. I'm tired of reading the platitudes in the paper, telling everyone they're safe, that it's all okay, all in hand, blah blah blah. It's a disgrace, lying to everyone, tricking everyone. Well, they can't trick me. I see. I know. I found a cop mobile online, delivered yesterday. It doesn't have the tune I wanted, but it's the right colors, lemon and white, so I'm pleased. Things are looking nice and organized in here now. I've set the mobile above the cot, high enough to be safe, but low enough to be enjoyed. It soothes me to wind it up and sit here in a while to listen. Sit here a while to listen. As I say, it's not the tune I would have chosen, but it's some kind of lullaby. Gentle, sweet. I'm not feeling great, actually, so I need to work hard to stay calm. I've had to limit my supply of everything. My drugs, I mean. Pace myself. So some of the time I feel wired, and then it's like jumping from a window, and I'm incredibly tired. But no matter, it's to be expected. They really worked. They've never really worked, the drugs. I know that now, but I'm worried about how it will feel without them completely, so I need to make sure I don't run out. So it's good to have this room to focus on. I've put a calendar on the wall and it's not too long to wait. I can be patient. I can do this. I just need to try to stop dwelling on the past and to think of the future when it will all have been worth it. It's just such a shame that no one would listen to me before. Trust me, if people had listened to me, all this need never have happened. Chapter 24. The Daughter Before. Is Tessa de Iberville's portrayed as responsible for her own demise? I don't believe it. I'm sitting on my bed, staring at the test stick, with tears rolling down my face, and I still don't believe. 2 blue lines. Pregnant. How? How? I've been crying for so long that my face actually feels numb. But crying doesn't help. I need to do something. Anything. To write. To type. To figure out what the hell I'm going to do next. I honestly don't understand how this could have happened. I've been on the pill for years without a single scare. I mean, I know I get a tummy upset occasionally. Irritable bowel syndrome, actually. But I never thought this would happen. Could happen. I've been Googling the morning after pill, but that just makes me cry even more. Is it too late for that? Legal? Ethical? I haven't had a clue about my dates, not really. I don't know what's legal and what's not. Can anyone get the morning after pill if it isn't actually technically the morning after? Do I go to my doctor? Do I go to a clinic? Can someone at the uni help me? Will a deaf be anonymous? I feel that I should know this stuff, but I don't, and I have no one I can confide in. Maddie is out because I can't face telling her about the father. It's way too dangerous for him. Mom would never cope. It would literally kill her, and I just can't talk to her about this kind of thing. And in any case, everyone will think it's A's, can't be by my calculations. If the blurred dates in my head are right, that is. And oh my god, do I tell him? The father? How do I do that? I suppose he has a right to know, a right to have a say, but it's early days for us, and he's married. And what if he thinks I did this on purpose, which of course I absolutely didn't? Excuse me. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to buy another test. Why oh why did I only get one? If that comes back positive too, I'm going to check my calendar and phone some helplines to work out where I am on my dates. Also my option before I contact him. Maybe he'll surprise me? I mean, I don't want to have a baby now. I want to get my career going. It would be completely bonkers to have a baby now. But I don't actually know if I can face the alternatives. Would I regret it? Ever forgive myself? I don't know. I don't know. I'm supposed to be a pilot tonight, but I can't face it. Can't face anything. What an idiot, Gemma. What a complete and horrible nightmare. It just feels surreal. I've had friends who've had scares and they're always turned out okay, but I'd never really appreciated how it would feel. And I just don't know how I got here. Feels like Alice grew up in the wrong possible disaster down that stupid, stinking rabbit hole. Chapter 25. The Private Investigator. Right. Tell me through what we've got so far. Mel is staring through the glass screen to the interior of the forensic lab. The 2 dolls, the identical boxes, and the various sample pots and bags are carefully laid out on the table within the sealed area. Hannah, the senior forensic scientist, is still in her protective clothing. She's doing them a big favor by agreeing to this preliminary briefing. It's Tuesday, just 24 hours since the drama, the confusion. Matthew glances between Hannah and Mel, all the while thinking of Emily and Sally in that summer house. The panic and the awful wait while the team sent in a sniffer dog to check the box in the kitchen. No sign of explosives. The careful removal. The phone call from Mel confirms that the hospital delivery was also cleared. No explosives. Relief, relief, relief. It's early days, Hannah sighs. I know I owe you one, Mel, but don't build your hopes up. Her voice, relayed by a speaker to the area outside the lab, is slightly distorted by the microphone inside her cubicle. Tilly, Mel, and Matthew can't go inside without gowning up, and they don't have time. I know and I appreciate this, but do we have something helpful yet? Anything at all? Mel's fidgeting and Matthew shares a small encouraging smile with her. She's under even greater pressure. The press have been told the final graduation is going ahead. Everyone assumed safe. And now this. Right, so the dolls are called Tiny Tears. Famous brand. Global success. First launched in the 50s and 60s. This modern version is by a new manufacturer. Readily available. Not very expensive. I didn't know they still made these. Mel looks puzzled. My mom had one. Think it's still in the loft. Well, you should get it out. Originals are collectible now. Hannah adjusts her protective lab coat and giggles. Okay, so the blood coming out of the eyes. How the hell? Matthew's not interested in the value of the bloody dolls. Tiny Tears was designed to cry real tears and wet her nappy. Basically, you feed her water from a bottle and that's pumped back out of the eyes and other parts. Mel clears her throat. Our sender, as a malicious twist, decided to pump these two full of blood. Well, not real blood. It's definitely not real? Looked like real blood to Matthew. Thick, dark, nasty. Sally was convinced it was blood when she first saw the doll. It's good quality, but definitely fake blood. The kind you can get from any joke shop. Popular at Halloween. We run tests to try to identify the brand. Matthew stares at the blood on the dolls' faces, which is staining their lemon baby girls. He's remembering Sally's quick thinking when Emily first saw the text, the red leaking from the eyes when they set the box upright. It's a Halloween doll, sent by mistake. Okay, so we all agree our sender has a warped mind. But what about Prince? What do we got? Mel narrows her eyes as if dreading the response. Sorry, nothing. All we've got so far are a few carpet fibers from the box. Regular wool mix. Not unusual. Very popular color. Not very helpful, I'm afraid. And nothing else? Mel looks crestfallen. Sorry, Melanie. I'll run the tests again. Update you when I do and do the full report. Thanks. Appreciate that. But good it wasn't explosives. Hannah has lifted her voice, but Mel has already turned away, and Matthew follows her out of the viewing area and through a door to the narrow corridor beyond. Right, so we'll get the team checking distribution of these dolls. We've got the hospital CCTV. It was a motorcycle courier, wearing a bloody helmet. He or she, hard to tell, persuaded the hospital volunteer to take the gift up to the ward. Still don't get how that was allowed. Let's not go there. The volunteer was wearing a tabard labeled, Can I Help? Meant well. I'd read about Gemma in the papers and thought it was nice for someone to send her something. She thought she was sparing hospital staff some time. So what about your delivery? Has Sally remembered anything else? No, just that she heard a motorbike too, then the doorbell. Bike had gone by the time she answered. She found the box on the doorstep, and when she saw the message, she thought it was a gift for me to cheer Emily up. Yeah, the printed card. For Daddy's girl. What do we make of that, Matt? Are we wrong? Is this from a guy, not a woman? Not sure. Could be deliberate to throw us off. Suppose. Whatever. It makes me think you're right. This is about the baby, Matt. Gemma's baby. Mel checks her watch. Right. I've got to speak to the suits upstairs. Meet you in the canteen for a sandwich later? Matthew pulls a face. He's delighted to have persuaded Sally last night to let him take up Mel's offer to work officially on the case. Now that it's personal. Now that they need to get this sorted for Emily's sake as much as anyone's. But he's not enjoying the prickly response from some of Mel's team. A few don't seem to understand why he's being brought in. Think I'll grab lunch off-site if you don't mind. I'm trying to persuade Amanda, the uni PR, to meet me. I'm hoping she can recommend a counselor for Emily. And obviously it's more urgent now. Okay, good. And once you've sorted out for Emily, see what you can get from this Amanda about the professor's affair rumors. Still nothing from the formal interviews? No. We've now seen all 7 men who've taught Gemma. Nothing so far. But we need to find out who the father of that baby is. Somehow. And urgently. I'll try my best. Might hang around the campus a bit. See what I can dig up. Good. Okay. Excellent. How's Emily doing? Not good. Wet the bed last night, which she hasn't done for months. Poor Poppet. And then Mel's phone goes. She checks the screen, mounts Canada before answering. Matthew watches her face concentrate and then darken. Right. Thanks for tipping me off. And you'll send all this to officially? Another pause. Okay, thank you. I'll look out for the email. Appreciate the call. Matthew raises his eyebrows as Mel puts her phone back in her pocket. Laura, Ed's first wife, took a flight to the UK several weeks back. You're kidding me. I wish. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. Excuse me. Chapter 26. The Father Before. When he was 13 years old, Ed Hartley was called to the head teacher's study. An urgent message had been sent to the tennis courts when he just finished thrashing his arch-rival Ben McLaren. Ed was as confused as he was nervous. He knew it was some kind of serious to get a summons like this. He had never been called to the head teacher before. Ed was more people-pleasing than troublemaker. A good pupil. Unless he'd been set up. He couldn't imagine what this was about. Unless there was a problem with the fees. His parents were always telling him how expensive his boarding school was. How tight they were finding it. How very lucky he was. Ed had grown more used to the boarding school in recent years. At first he had terrible homesickness and had to fight hard not to let the other boys see him upset. He had long since managed to get past all of that, but he still carried his slight undercurrent of unease in his stomach. Always a tiny bit on edge. It was, he decided later, an awareness of being exposed, vulnerable. The realization that he had to depend entirely on himself and not on his family day to day. There was just one weekly call home, and he always told his mother and father he was absolutely fine, as this was clearly what was expected of him. This particular day, as he walked to the head teacher's study, he turned over the possible problems with the fees and wondered if he would mind if he had to leave the school. He realized, bouncing his tennis racket against his knee as he walked, that he would actually be a bit disappointed. But not too much. Certainly not devastated. Maybe even relieved? And so he knocked on the head teacher's door with a strange mix of curiosity and hope. His mood only switched to true alarm when he was called inside to find his Aunt Kathy, his mother's sister, sitting across the desk from the head teacher, dabbing her eyes. He hadn't seen his aunt in years. The sisters weren't close, some falling out, though he never knew the details. So what the hell was she doing here? Please sit down, Edmund. The head teacher looked nervous rather than cross, and Ed began to worry even more. Hold on, I gotta scratch my nose. God. The news, when it came, was both terrible. It was also some dreadful mistake. The head teacher was mumbling about an accident. How very sorry. Everything was instant. They wouldn't have known a thing, your parents. How terribly, terribly sorry they all were. All Ed could think was how awful for there to have been this muddle. How terrible it would have been when they found the right boy, the other Ed Hartley, in some other school far, far away, whose parents really had been killed when a lorry knocked their car across the central reservation, right through a barrier so that it rolled down a steep bank. There were somersaults in the car and then a burst of flames. The head teacher didn't tell him that. He read that later in the papers when it turned out it wasn't a mistake. He was the Hartley, waking from his dreams to see the car burst into flames in front of his eyes. And now here he was in Canada, all alone, and once again awaiting news. He was sitting in another smart office, again feeling small and strangely detached, wondering when someone was going to announce there had been a terrible mistake, and it was another Ed Hartley this was all happening to. After that first awful night when she couldn't recognize him, Laura moved in with her parents, and for a time, Ed was convinced her illness would be a temporary thing, that some strange infection would be discovered that would explain the delirium, the delusions. A week on antibiotics and everything would be okay, surely. And now, many weeks on, they still had no diagnosis. Here in this fancy private hospital, with a fancy private specialist. So you haven't even tried antibiotics? Ed repeated, irritated now by his fancy bright orange chair which exactly matched the accent splash in the blue and orange curtains. Laura was one for the accents. A lion cushion here, a citrus though there. There's no infection, the consultant repeated. We've run every possible test. Ed glanced once more around the room. He wished they were back in the UK with the nice, reliable NHS. He liked the NHS. He knew where he was with the NHS, as with its tired look and its practical furniture. Okay, it was horribly underfunded and it didn't have coordinated decor with fancy accents, but his experience across the few dramas of his lifetime, appendicitis and a broken leg, had been good. The staff, brilliant. He was still struggling to understand the Canadian healthcare system. When he agreed to move to Toronto with Laura, the deal was they'd live in a year. He understood why she wanted to be near her parents, and having no real family left himself, on Kathy lost interest in contact once he passed 18. It made absolute sense. Laura's family were welcoming and kind, also doing well commercially. The job offer from her father was difficult to resist. But right from the off, Ed had worried about the unfamiliar health care. He had wrongly assumed that Canada had an insurance-based system like America, that everything would be horribly expensive. One night he had a row with Laura in England. What if I have a road accident? We could be bankrupt. She had smoothed his forehead and smiled, just as she did when he woke up from the dreams in the middle of the night, with the car bouncing down the embankment. She explained that Canada's health care was free, just like the NHS, funded through taxes. You had to pay for prescriptions and top-up services, but that was nearly always covered by employment insurance. So is there insurance? Not like America, Ed. It's fine. It will be fine. And now it wasn't fine because Laura's condition ventured into the terribly tricky territory of mental health services, and they were sadly as complex, funding-wise, in Canada as anywhere else in the world. This private care and specialist appointment was being paid for by Laura's father to speed things up. But Ed was conscious that private bills could very quickly become very large indeed, unless Laura could be properly diagnosed, and swiftly treated and cured. She had been referred by her own doctor, who'd almost sounded excited when he said he had never come across anything quite like it. It was distressing, but also a fascinating case. Ed glanced again at the blue and orange curtains. Fascinating was not a word he would use. There had been so many appointments already. He had been asked a million times if Laura had suffered a head injury. Any unusual behavior before this episode? Over and over he told them the truth. No. He was as baffled as they were. Laura had been fine, and then suddenly she hadn't recognized him. It was like his childhood, playing tennis one minute, orphan the next. At first, when Laura moved back in with her parents, she was she was calm and for the most part behaving normally in every aspect of life, unless, or, unless and until anyone, unless and until anyone referred to Ed. Her parents had managed to convince her that she should stop thinking about him, that the episode that had so upset her would pass. She just needed to rest and very soon would see that Ed really was Ed and all would be well. But this strategy collapsed whenever they tried to reintroduce Ed. They arranged low-key visits from Ed, pretending he had just popped by. But however casual the approach, the episodes never stayed low-key. They always ended in a meltdown. She would start screaming at her parents, demanding to know why they were not searching for her real husband, why the imposter Ed was not in police custody. The consultant, Mr. Price, had himself arranged to observe one of these meetings in the more controlled environment of the hospital. They used a visitor's room, painted green for its calming effect, and dotted with huge pot plants and terracotta planters. Ed had strangely felt quite hopeful as he was led into the room to see Laura and her mother. Maybe a change of environment would help. This is Ed, your husband Ed, her mother had encouraged. See, I can see that this is the real Ed. It's all fine now. But Laura had stared at him, wide-eyed, and then stood up. This isn't Ed. This is him. This is the man who's taken Ed. Can't you see that, Mother? Look at him. Please look at him properly. The consultant, watching via a camera roll on the wall, had sent in a nurse to ask Ed to leave as Laura was becoming distressed. They had tried this kind of test one more time with the specialist observing, but Laura was even more upset the second time, thrashing her arms about until she had to be given a sedative. It was decided that she should be given yet more general tests along with complete rest. A couple of weeks of watch and wait, living with her parents. The idea was that Ed should stay away and they would wait for the results of all the other tests and psychiatric assessments to try to introduce him for a third meeting to see if Laura's behavior around him changed. But things spiraled further. Although Laura had no problem recognizing both her parents, she suddenly became suspicious of the family home. She lived there from birth. A beautiful, sprawling, five-bedroom home with a huge attic room, which had been Laura's playroom once. When they were together in England, Laura had shared pictures and stories of the house. The attic had the most wonderful doll's house. Every birthday, her parents gave her more miniature furniture to dress it. Laura loved the doll's house, and she loved the family home. But in their new nightmare, Laura woke up one day to announce to her parents that she wanted to be taken home. Her parents thought she went back to her marital home, the flat with that across Toronto, but she didn't. She seemed no longer to recognize her parents' house, her beloved childhood home. "Why have you brought me here?" she asked. "It's not your house." In despair, her father decided to try an experiment. One of the doctors had already mentioned the rare condition Capgras syndrome, which was on the long list of possible conditions that could be afflicting Laura, but it was so rare as to be considered highly unlikely. Nevertheless, Laura's father, and Ed too, had done a lot of research. Laura's father, David, had found one suggested theory that driving the patient back to the right place or in the right person sometimes would be worked by tricking the brain to reset. So he drove Laura a few miles in circles, telling her they were going home. Sure enough, when they returned to their same home, she seemed at first to recognize it, but this only lasted about half an hour. When she moved into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, she again suddenly protested that it was not the right house. "Why am I here? I need to go home." David was now at a loss and tried desperately to reassure his daughter. He tried to show her familiar things. "Look, here's your favorite mug, Laura. Look at it." But Laura picked up the mug and threw it at him. She then began to smash other things in the kitchen, crying uncontrollably. Eventually, she barricaded herself in her bedroom, clearly terrified. The family doctor had to be called out with a sedative, and when things did not improve, the decision was taken that Laura would need hospital care. As she wouldn't agree to this, she would need, in effect, to be temporarily sectioned for her own safety. The process in Canada involved a certificate of involuntary hospital admission, but it all amounted to the same thing. His beautiful wife, Laura, had been sectioned. The woman he had met, watching an extraordinary clock in Walls Cathedral, was the subject of the Mental Health Act. That's how they ended up in this private hospital, with the smart orange chairs, and the fancy specialist. So what's the diagnosis? Ed was struggling to sit still. Laura's parents sitting together, holding hands to his left. He glanced across to see that Laura's mother was fighting tears. It's been weeks, Ed added. You must surely have some idea by now. Some treatment plan. The specialist looked down at his notes. Our priority at the moment is to ensure Laura is kept calm, and safe. Yes, but you can't keep her sedated forever, and she can't leave in the hospital. And she's my wife, for heaven's sakes. My wife! Ed felt his voice crack as if facing to the true horror of his situation for the first time. These things can be very complex, and they can take time. What things? What is it precisely you think this is? Could it be this Copper's syndrome you mentioned previously? Is that what you really think? The specialist took in a deep breath. It's a possibility, but I'm not an expert. I've been in touch with a colleague in Ontario who's worked with Copper's syndrome. He's written a paper on it. I've asked him to see Laura when he's next here. And when's that? Next month. Next month! Ed stood up and marched to the window. He looked out at the garden, at some kind of pink-flowered bush alongside an oak bench in a walled courtyard. He stared for a moment at the blooms. He didn't recognize the plant. He found himself longing for the pink camellias outside his flat back in London, campion in the hedge, hedgerows on childhood holidays in Cornwall. The familiar flowers. The familiar flat back in England. All the familiar places where they had been so happy. Maybe I should take Laura back to England. See what the doctors there can do. Don't be ridiculous, Ed. It was Laura's mother. She can't even be in the same room as you. And then suddenly, it was too much. The alien pink bloom slowly blurring before his eyes, though it was all a while before he realized why. Suddenly, he could feel a tennis racket in his hand, and lay deep in his stomach, an awareness that the life he had known was over. And just like that boy in the head teacher's study, he could once more feel silent tears dripping from his chin onto his shirt. Hey, funny man, if you're still here, how you doing tonight? I'm happy you're still going. Well, I'm still reading. I know I have a stopping point. I am going to stop halfway in the book, like I initially said I was going to do. So, yeah. I'll probably do 2 streams tomorrow, basically at certain points of the day, of me finishing this book, because I honestly am. I do have my next book already set up. I'm currently reading it right now, outside of this book. And so, once I get that done, you guys will see what that. Once I get both books done, you guys will see what that next book is. Well, when I get done with this book, you'll see what the next book is. But, for now, we got this book to finish. Chapter 27. The Mother. I still don't believe it. I feel giddy. You've been married before and you didn't tell me? We're in the nurse's small office at the entrance to the ward. I hate that we've had to leave Gemma with a nurse in the cubicle. I feel real physical distress to be out in this other world, away from our girl. What if we miss something? What if this is the very time that Gemma opens her eyes? I feel lightheaded, my arms tingling. I'm sorry. I feel faint again. Sit on the floor. I'll fetch a nurse. No, I don't want a nurse. Well, put your head forward. I'll get some tea with sugar. I want you to go. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel. We need to talk. And I can't leave you like this. He doesn't move, so I lower myself to the floor and put my head forward. Ed just watches and we wait a few moments in silence. I'm thinking of my mother sitting on the floor of the kitchen, crying all those years ago. I still feel giddy, but I don't think I'm going to faint after all. I just need to wait a while, and I need Ed not to be here. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. Just go. Please. At last, Ed leaves the room, and I'm relieved to be alone. Words spinning around my head. Laura. Canada. Some ridiculous syndrome I've never heard of, that he probably made up to try to make his lies look better. I can hardly believe it. Ed married before. I find that I'm not only disoriented but jealous. What was she like, this first wife, this first choice? I have my eyes closed and am trying to work out what to do next when I hear the door again and Ed reappears, holding out a cup of tea. Sip it. Please, Rachel. It's got extra sugar. I don't want the tea, and I don't want it back in the room either, but I also don't want to speak, so I just reach out for the cup. Resigned, it's too hot, but he tells me again to try sipping it. I do as I'm told. Tiny sips. It's horribly sweet, the punch of it hitting the back of my throat, and I'm sorry to find it's almost instantly waking me back up, sucking me back into this room, this new nightmare. I keep sipping, not because I want this new awareness, but because it's buying time. He's quiet at last, watching, and I'm trying to work out what to say to make him go, to leave so that I can return to Gemma and pretend this isn't happening. By the time I've drunk maybe a third of the tea, he's repeating the bizarre story, the muddle of words, filling the room again. Laura, Canada, psychotic episode, Capgras. I try to shrink it on myself, but the sugar's preventing the retreat. A mistake. I reach out to put the remains of the tea on the nearest desk. I should have told you. I wish I had, Rachel. I'm so very sorry, but I was so thrown when we met. So confused. And ashamed, too. And I couldn't believe it when you didn't push me about my past. When you didn't ask questions. I look up at him. This new Ed. This liar Ed. And there's this part of me that always knew something like this was lurking. Waiting. And he's right, actually. I didn't ask because I didn't want to know. It was like a pact. I didn't ask questions. He didn't ask questions. Why did he have to spoil it? Why did the secret have to be this big? I can't do this, Ed. You need to go. No, Rachel. I'm sorry that this is hurting you so much. I never wanted this. To hurt you or Gemma. But I can't let you shut me down this time. We have to talk about this. The police say Laura's here. In the UK. She flew here a few weeks ago. I'm sure they'll sort it all out. That it's some kind of terrible misunderstanding. But until they do, and I feel my eyes widening, my mind opening, my thoughts are expanding like a bird stretching its wings, and in this new expanse of air and pictures and puzzles, there's the sudden realization that Ed is not just confessing something bizarre about the past, something historic. Oh my god. So, is she dangerous? Violent? Is that what you're really saying? This Laura, this first wife I knew nothing about. Are you seriously telling me that you may be involved in all of this? I glance to the floor onto the ward and am thinking about Gemma in her coma, with the frame over her horrible stump, the confusion and the shock all at once changing to a new emotion. Real anger. I glare at Ed and am shocked to find I want to hit him. I feel this terrible bubbling up inside as if all the years of pressing things down, all the pictures and the confusion from the past, from my childhood, are suddenly in the room with us. All the shouting and the secrets and the lies and the pretending, all suddenly too much. Are you saying that your first wife may have shot our daughter? I pull myself up, using one hand on the desk, to sit back on the chair by the wall, unsure if I'm steady enough yet to stand. No, I'm not saying that. I don't believe that for 1 minute. She wasn't violent, Rachel. She was unwell. I would have said something right at the very beginning if I ever thought that. So why are you speaking up now? Why are the police suddenly in a panic about all of this now? My eyes dart wildly around the room as I start to think of D.I. Sanders, remembering why I need to talk to her too. I put my hands to my face as the awful reality dawns. Click. The two pieces in the puzzle suddenly slotting perfectly together. The woman watching me. The weird woman at the end of the drive and then outside the hairdresser's. He's not who he says he is. I have to warn you. Not Ed's mistress. Never Ed's mistress. I need to see a picture of her, Ed. He looked stunned at his request. Why? He takes his fingers to his hair. No. Rachel, you're upset. I won't let you torture yourself. Your phone. I stare at his pocket. Do you have a picture of her on your phone? No, of course not. This is my past, Rachel. Decades ago. A lifetime ago. I glance right then left before shutting my eyes, trying to call up the image of the woman outside the hairdresser's. It takes a moment, but suddenly I can see her more clearly. Open my eyes. Does she have striking hair, Ed? I'm sorry? Laura. Your Laura. Does she have strawberry blonde hair? Ooh, shoot. Strawberry blonde hair. Why does that sound a little bit familiar to me? I don't know. But it sounds familiar. Seems familiar. So we're almost to where I'm going to be stopping at. Well, we're not quite there yet, but we are getting there. Chapter 28. The Private Investigator. As he pulls into the drive, Matthew can see Sally at the kitchen window, looking out for him. He raises his hand. She shares a small, nervous smile and then retreats, turning away towards the playroom. Matthew finds that he's nervous too, wondering what the counselor will be like and what exactly will be expected of him. He takes his phone from his pocket and scans the contacts. He starts to write a text but changes his mind. Too difficult to get the tone right. Dials instead. Amanda? Oh, good. I just wanted to thank you for helping us out. She's here at the house now. Lucy, the counselor. I'm so grateful, really. Oh, good. I'm glad she was able to come out so quickly. It sounded urgent. Yes, I'm sorry I couldn't give you the details. Something happened. Sort of classified. You can't share details about the dolls. They need to keep it quiet. Something for the interview room down the line, to hopefully trip up a suspect. But my wife and I are incredibly grateful. Don't mention it. A part of him would like to ask her what to expect, but he still feels awkward, knowing that she's having counseling herself. Also, he changes his tone, more upbeat, as he gets out of the car, not wanting to keep Sally and Emily waiting. Will you be at the update with the Chancellor and D.I. Sanders later? Yes. Why? Anything to add? We've still got the media crawling all over us. Expect you do too. And some. No, nothing to add. I'll be out of action, obviously, for this session, but D.I. Sanders will bring you up to speed. Just wanted to add that if you need anything from us, a return favor, do please ask. No need. Happy to help. Right, I must go. D.I. Sanders will update me after the meeting. Okay, bye. Bye. He fires the central lock and then hurries inside to find Sally and Emily waiting, seated around the small table in the playroom alongside a woman with a shock of dark curly hair, held back by a bright turquoise band. She's wearing long, dangly earrings with the white and turquoise beads, and Matthew feels strangely reassured by how much she looks the part. Hello, I'm Matthew. He shakes her hand. Lucy. Look, we got a worry jar. Look, we got a worry jar, Daddy. Emily picks up a large empty plastic jar to show him, and he's both surprised and pleased to see the energy back in her eyes. Emily's clearly open to this, up for this. She's a frightened little girl just now, but above all, still a curious girl. What's a worry jar? He finds that he is ironically worried about the worry jar, still wary of his part here. But he smiles at his daughter and at Lucy and Sally in turn to signal he's up for this too. He takes he takes a seat and tells himself that he will be and he will try very hard to bury his default setting that therapy of any kind is all mumbo jumbo. That talking never solved anything. He will try not to remember that when he left the force, when he woke up night after night, sweating and calling out from his nightmares for the child he believed he had killed, he refused help, refused therapy, left the force instead. He smooths the fabric of his trousers over his knees. This is not about him. This is for Emily, so he must park the prejudice and do whatever it takes to help this little girl. Well, everyone has worries, Lucy says as she hands out paper. And everyone gets afraid sometimes. It's normal. Adults and children have worries, so sometimes we need to talk about them and maybe draw a picture, or write some words. And then we put the worry in the jar and put the lid on. And we think of something happier to help us not to think about the worry. I can write my name, Emily says, looking proud. That's very clever. And I bet you can draw pictures. Do you like drawing, Emily? Lucy is moving the pot of crayons and pencils closer to Emily. Okay, Mommy and Daddy, you need to write or draw worry too. Lucy is widening her eyes and Matthew feels a pull in his stomach. He finds that he is unsure how he is supposed to behave here. Should he have spoken separately to Lucy first? Is he supposed to be honest? Or brave for Emily? We need to be honest so we can work out how to deal with our worries, Lucy says as if reading his mind, so that we know what to do when we have difficult feelings, when we have worries, and when we're afraid. Do you get worried? Emily says suddenly, looking very earnestly at Lucy. Of course, Lucy adjusts her hairband, but not too much, because I know the tricks now. Tricks? Emily looks very interested now, her eyes wide and hopeful, and Matthew feels his heart leap. He thinks of her crying when he ran to them in the supermarket car park after the cathedral. He thinks of her creeping into their bed in the night. I've had an accident, Mummy. Yes, the tricks are how to make myself feel better. That's what I'm going to show you. Lucy winks and takes a piece of paper herself. So my worry is what people will think of me. She starts to draw a stick person with a big stomach in the belly. In the belly she takes different colored pencils and draws lots of wiggles. I've had funny feelings in my tummy, like wiggly worms, because I worry people will like me. Emily laughs, and Matthew finds himself smiling and realizes that he likes Lucy already. So what are you all worried about at the moment? Mommy and Daddy, write it down. And Emily, you draw a picture of your worry. Matthew stares at his blank page and frowns. Sally starts to write immediately, and Matthew wonders what the hell she's writing. Emily draws a picture with crayons. She draws Sally with the blonde hair using a bright yellow crayon. He is drawn very tall, with he is drawn very tall with big baggy trousers and his curly hair in a sea of squiggles. Next, Emily draws herself in a pink dress, very small in the middle with stick arms and huge hands, reaching out to each parent. She then pauses, and all the adults watch as Emily takes a red crayon and draws an ugly line across the whole family. Huge, fat red lines. That's the blood, she announces as she presses harder on the paper, her face turning paler as she watches the family disappear behind all the red lines. That's my worry. In case you don't know, it's that she is seemingly afraid that she and her family will die because of, and it's also because if you remember, when the doll was uh, when the doll was revealed, it was crying tears of blood. It, like, well, not tears of blood, but red tears like blood. So that's probably part where the red comes from. Uh, it's so yeah, that's what I feel like is going on here. She definitely remembers the doll still, because she's using red, and she's afraid that her family might die. You know, honestly, seeing a doll, like dude, honestly, this book just took a page out of like creepypastas, sort of, because of how it seems like it. But the reason why I say this is because how, if you have read, more often than not, if you have read creepypastas, there are so many characters that will have red come down the eyes. Come, like, they would they would come down the eye, like literally stream down the eyes. Like underneath the eyes, like right, like this. Yeah, that's what I mean. So this kind of picture doesn't really get me too much, but I can understand why people who have never had a kind of imagination, because a book usually requires you have to have like an imagination, like picture, like how the characters are described, what the characters are doing, what they're saying, where they're at, what they're doing, every little thing you can imagine. Because like I remember one time, I can honestly remember this, and it's really, and I can kind of think about this. There was this one time, I was reading a book in middle school, but in my head I had the characters be like the one little boy with the black and white hair that was from the cartoon show The Secret Saturdays. Because I kind of watched that show back in the day when I was a kid. It's not. I don't know if people remember that show, but I do. But I remember that boy specifically. But for the cat, I can't remember which character I was thinking of. It was probably, given it was a fantasy book, I was probably thinking of that one Digimon from Digimon Frontiers. Or not Frontiers. It's the Digimon where they were using cards instead of just like they were using cards on their Digivice to like give their to give their Digimon attacks, like these special attacks, or to Digivolve, that anime. It was probably like that. What was that name? I can't remember the name of the Digimon, but it was like the nine. It was like, if you kind of think about it, the character had a Digivolution line where one of the stages had an evolution that looked like a nine-tailed fox. I think it was Riemon or something like that. I could be wrong, but that was probably what I was thinking of there. But yeah, or I was thinking of that one cat from Dream Eater Mary, because I did get into that show around that time, like that anime, the English dub. Yeah, it was probably the cat from Dream Eater Mary. Now that I think about it, but anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're getting a little bit. I'm talking way too much about my past. But anyway, we are almost done with this half of the book, with this part of the book. So let's finish it. Also, let's take a turn first. Why not? But yeah, that's where I think the red comes from in that last bit. Anyway, chapter 29. The Father Now. Back at the house, Ed feels utterly overwhelmed. He picks up the new post from the doormat and adds it to the huge pile already unchecked on the side table. Lord knows who could be lurking in there. Unpaid bills, final demands, speeding tickets. But who bloody cares? Until this moment, all the normal tiers of responsibility in his life, work, pay the mortgage, insure the car, have been kicked into the long grass, completely overshadowed by one thought only: getting Gemma well. Technically, he's been freed up to concentrate on this one thing. He's been given compassionate leave by his agency and has no immediate financial worries. They have savings, and Ed hasn't been thinking about work or the future or anything beyond Gemma and those blessed machines ticking away in her cubicle. But on the drive home, and now here in the hall, staring at his face in the mirror by the coat hooks, there's this new and terrible pressure crushing down upon him. This horror of an entirely new future. Even if Gemma does come back to them, has he blown it? Will he lose it all anyway? His family? This home where they've been happy? He stands very still for a moment and then turns from the mirror. You can picture Gemma running through the hall in a fairy outfit. Her wings so wide that they brush against the staircase as she passes. Look, Daddy, my wings are flapping. I'm flying. He turns his head, back towards the door, and imagines packing boxes in a furniture van outside. The horror of another divorce. Another failure. Rachel won't say why she wants a photo of Laura. She says she'll tell him when he gets back to the hospital. So how did she know about the strawberry blonde hair? What the hell is going on? The police asked for a picture of Laura too, but he genuinely doesn't keep one on his phone, and in any case, the last contact was so long ago, he has no idea what Laura looks like now. Short hair, long hair, gray hair? So D.I. Sanders is chasing an up-to-date official photo from the clinic in Canada, and also from the passport office. He told Rachel all this too. He told her that he only has a few very old photos in the loft, but she still wants to see them. Says it's important. Ominously, she says they may need to speak to D.I. Sanders again together, but he doesn't understand why, and typical Rachel, she won't say. If they had a different kind of relationship, he would press her, but that's not how they roll, and how can he cause even more distress after what he's put her through? He takes a deep breath and opens the understairs cupboard for the folding ladder. He drags it upstairs, clicking away against each carpeted step. Normally he lifts the ladder high enough to prevent dragging, but today he can't be bothered. On the landing, he looks at the narrow loft opening and sighs. For years they've been debating a loft upgrade with proper flooring, a larger access, and a fold-down ladder, but the project's always been bumped. How he wishes now they'd gone ahead. It's an alright hatch, and he has to twist himself awkwardly to get inside. He's forgotten the torch, so takes his phone from his back pocket for its light. He knows exactly where the photos are. He tucked them in an old school book at the bottom of a cardboard box of boyhood treasures. A set of marbles, a prized clunker, a favorite Lego kit. He put a stack of musty old comics and superhero annuals in the top of the box to discourage Rachel from rummaging. She hates comics. Hates anything musty. Years back, long before he and Rachel moved in together, he sat in his old flat in his old life, wondering what he should do with the mementos of his life with Laura. Throw them all away to echo the pretense it had never happened? He decided to keep just 3 photographs of their wedding. It was a small affair, hosted at Laura's family home in Canada, under a beautiful awning, decorated with flowers in the garden. Laura wore a sprig of white flowers in her hair instead of a veil. He keeps very still thinking about it. It genuinely feels like it all happened to a different person. He closes his eyes, and it's a while before he can bring himself to creep from rafter to rafter, to reach the box, carefully placed in a corner near the water tank. The photos, taken out of their frames, are now tucked into a fat copy of the works of Shakespeare, a prize given to him in the sixth form, just before he left boarding school. The head teacher had let him stay on after his parents' death, awarding a scholarship of sorts to discount the fees. He forgets the name of the award, but always suspected it was a kindness rather than something he earned. Decent of the school, really. Ed turns the pages to find the photos right in the middle. It's a shock. They both look so young. Is that what Rachel wants to see? How young he was? What Laura was like? He frowns, again wondering how on earth Rachel guessed the hair color. He takes a picture of the photos with his phone, but there's no signal, not even one bar. He's promised to forward one to Rachel straight away, and will need to go back downstairs so the phone can link to the Wi-Fi. The phone signal in their village is poor at the best of times, but the Wi-Fi is good. He's careful as he twists himself back onto the ladder, climbing down and pulling the hatch back into place. He moves into his study to send the picture, adding a simple message. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you, I never meant to hurt you. Why did you lead this, Rachel? Please, tell me. He walks down the stairs, a pull in his stomach as he sits for a moment to stare at the phone, surprised at the ping of an immediate response. A text from Rachel. I'm calling the police. Come straight back to hospital. We'll explain. He tries to ring her, desperate for an explanation, but her phone switches through to the answer service. No surprise, and he can't think of what to say by way of message, so he hangs up. Rachel struggles with tough stuff face to face, never mind on the phone. He sighs, reflecting that up until now, this has suited him. All those times he's watched her descend these stairs to retreat into the kitchen and bake when things got tricky with Gemma in her early teens. Just leave your mom be. Let it go, Gemma. He needs to hurry back to the hospital, make her explain, make it right, and make her forgive him. He stands, puts his phone back in his pocket, and then frowns again, as his mind seems to acknowledge something out of place. At first he can't figure out what it is. He glances around and then notices there's now a new letter on the doormat in a buff envelope. But he puts everything on the side table, didn't he? He assumes a circular of some kind, but when he picks it up, he's surprised to find it's addressed to him. There's a stamp, but oddly no postmark. The address is written out on a large white label, the writing childlike, lowercase letters. He doesn't understand. There's no post at this hour. Much too late. He looks up at the frosted window pane in the upper part of the door, wondering if this was somehow hand-delivered, but there's no shadow. No sign of anyone outside. He tears open the letter and feels a rush of adrenaline at the contents. There's a single postcard tucked inside. No message. Just a postcard of Wells Cathedral. Oh, I don't think we need to guess who sent that then, do we? Chapter 30. The Daughter Before. Explore the relationship between fiction and metaphysics and/or ethics in any work by D.H. Lawrence. Today has just been awful. The worst. When I woke up... Hold on, let me make sure. Let's see. Okay, just making sure things were what was on there so far. When I woke up and set off, I really was clinging to the hope there's an explanation. That S had been telling me the truth, and there's a reason he's not been in touch. Over the last couple of days, after the second and third pregnancy test came back positive, I tried again and again to arrange to meet him, but he just didn't answer my texts. We keep messages to a minimum, obviously, and always delete them straight away, but he's normally pretty quick to reply, so this really threw me. These days we meet off campus, a small low-key hotel somewhere. It's become too risky to meet up in his office as most students don't see their tutors very often, if at all. So S has been worried someone who would notice me coming and going. I finished the module he was teaching, so technically I have no call to see him, except in that tutor capacity, and he says it would arouse suspicion to use that card too frequently. He normally texts the name of a hotel, different each time, and I meet him in the room. Not in the bar, in case we get unlucky and anyone sees us. To be perfectly honest, I've hated this because it feels sort of dirty and seedy and underhand. And yeah, I get that an affair with a married man is, in theory, dirty and seedy and underhand, but I've always told myself it's not like that with us because his marriage is over anyway. In the end, I realized there must be something wrong with this phone. I couldn't find him around campus, not at all, and so I did something really risky. I'd already checked out where he lived online. Nosy, jealous, curious. Call it whatever you like. I couldn't resist seeing what his house was like. I found him on the electoral register and I used Google Earth to look at the place. Big red brick affair with bay windows. Lovely, actually. I got this horrible pang of proper full-on jealousy when I first saw it. I suppose I put the fact he's married in a box that I try not to think about. Looking at the house made it real, but then I remembered how he described his marriage. As like a prison, a place he just couldn't yet escape. And so I realized it was important not to overthink it all. I haven't forgotten I haven't forgotten that's what A said I always do. Overthink things. I tried to put the house out of my mind, but when S didn't answer my texts, I couldn't help myself. I started to look on Google Earth more and more. I started to fantasize, to imagine us in a red brick house with our baby. I started to tell myself that, yes, S would be a little shocked when he found out about the pregnancy, but ultimately he would be supportive. Surely. He's a nice guy. One of the good guys. He cares about me. That's what I expect deep down. That we will work out a way to be together, and for me to get my career going after settling the baby into our new lives. When he still didn't answer my texts, I began to panic because I need to know how he feels about the baby before I make any decisions. I can't talk to Maddie or Mom or anyone still because S will lose his job and Mom just won't be able to cope it, and so in the end I couldn't help myself. I didn't see any other choice. S still was on campus, so I decided to make a trip. I took the bus and used Google Map on my phone to find his street. He's never given me his home address, but, as I say, I found him on the electoral register. I don't know what I expected exactly, either to feel or actually do. I certainly wasn't planning to walk up to his door or anything stupid like that. I just needed to be near him, and maybe I hoped that he would catch sight of me at least, and that would trigger him to contact me. What a mistake. It was all so horrible. I turned up mid-afternoon and I hid behind a bus stop on the other side of the street. I spotted his car in the drive and I could see right in the driveway with a clear view of the porch. A part of me was a bit worried that he might see me and be really cross, but I didn't approach the house or anything stupid. I was hoping that if he did see me, he would just get in touch and we could sort everything out. That I would be able to explain it was the only way I could let him know that I needed to speak to him urgently. And then the front door opened. She came out of the house ahead of him, and it was such a shock. She was so much younger than I expected, and so pretty. She was carrying a picnic basket, which at first partly blocked my view of her. Her long hair was in a ponytail, and she was wearing sunglasses. The thing is, she just looked so glamorous, so confident, and so at ease. I had this picture in my head of her being some kind of mess. That's the way S describes her, so it didn't fit. S followed straight behind her, closing the porch door, and then came the next and even bigger shock. She put the picnic basket into the boot of his car, and when she turned, I could see her properly. Her stomach. The bump. Not huge. Maybe 5 or 6 months. I don't really know, but it was like a physical blow. And then, before they moved to get into the car, S took her into his arms and really tenderly. He pushed her sunglasses up onto the top of her head and kissed her on the mouth. Not just a peck, not just a duty kiss, but a really tender and proper kiss, like the kisses he gives me. I was dumbfounded, anchored to the spot behind the bus stop. I was so shaken. I very nearly stepped out to make sure that he would see me and know that I had seen this. They embraced for quite a while. He put his hand on her bump and stroked her, and she stroked his back, the very bottom of his spine, and tucked one of her thumbs into the back of his jean belt while he brushed the hair back from her forehead and kissed her again. And I just couldn't believe it, that I had let myself be so completely tricked. Such an idiot. This was not a man who was living separately from his mess of a wife. This was not a man who was trying to leave his wife at all. This was a man who was having a baby with his wife. As they separated and he took his place in the driver's seat and she moved round in the passenger seat, I leaned back against the bus stop and felt more shaken and more alone than I could ever remember. As I keep saying, I haven't told anyone about the pregnancy because I just can't confide in anyone about S. And now I have no one to talk to at all. No one to tell how truly stupid I have been. Only now, much too late, do I realize what a cliche this is. I've been taken in by a player, a snake, and I feel too stupid to begin to know what to do next. Since I got back to the flat, I've paced and cried and paced and cried. I've picked up my phone and thought about calling home, telling Mom that I need her to come and pick me up, but I just don't have the courage to dial. I can't do that to her. So all I've done in the practical sense is get back in touch with the clinic to make a new appointment to go over my options. How many weeks I have left to make a decision about what on earth to do. I'm just hoping and praying that I can get my degree finished and get through graduation before I have to make the call. Break both my parents' hearts. And now, sitting here, I'm shocked at how angry I feel. Like I could hit something. Like I want justice. Revenge? A part of me wants to find out the number and phone S's wife, to let her know exactly what her husband's really like. But guess what's happened to top it all? A new DM on Facebook. He's not who he says he is. That's the message. From a new friend I don't even remember accepting. It's made a shiver go right through me. I suppose it could be A hacking me again, but it's as if someone has read my thoughts. Because that's precisely the message I would like to send to S's wife. Okay, so I'm actually going to keep going a little bit because I have a proper stop. I feel like I got the kind of stopping point that would that would be another like cliffhanger ending. You know, that's what I see it. But we're gonna go right to that part. Let's see here. Oh, hold on. Let's check to see. Okay, nope. Okay. Chapter 31. The Mother. I reached for Gemma's laptop and rested on the end of her bed in front of me, waiting for it to fire up. I found the pictures from from her birthday tea and clicked on the file. Gemma looked so happy, so pretty. There are photos of me and Ed too, and it makes my stomach lurch to think of us back then, with no idea of what's to come. I looked through some of her other files. Curiosity. But it's mostly coursework as far as I can see. A lot of essays. She was always telling me how much time she spent on them, pushing for that first. I scrolled through some headings. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and another about someone I haven't even heard of. I just read the essay title and click away. I love books, but wouldn't have a clue where to start. I feel out of my depth. I look again at some of the photographs. Random shots with friends. Fancy dress parties. I let out a sigh and put the laptop back on the cabinet next to Gemma's bed. Extraordinary how the whole process of storing memories has changed in a generation. Hold on a second, gotta mute real quick. Give me one quick second. Okay, sorry about that. Alright. My mother's always loved taking and storing photographs. She began back in the day when you had to take your camera film to a chemist and wait for photographs of the negatives. I remember telling a friend of Gemma's about negatives, and she didn't even know what I was talking about. I couldn't find any, so I had to show them online. Images of the long, dark stripes with punched holes along the edges. Mom also had stacks of photo albums on a shelf in that understairs cupboard. Likes to get them out and retell the stories we've already heard a million times over. Me learning to ride a bike. Me learning the recorder. Me with my pigtails in the school nativity. I think of my mother at home now. Flu or just a virus, we can't tell. Recovering well, but still unable to visit Gemma. Messaging each day. I try so hard to keep upbeat when we talk, but I know she watches the news and I worry how she will cope when she first sees Gemma. Like this. And then I think again of when I was little. My mother looking after me when I was unwell. Her voice. I brought you some soup. All those photo albums. Sometimes, I wonder if childhood memories are all real or if we conjure some of them from the photographs and anecdotes shared by our parents. When I listen to the story and look at a picture of my mother's albums, I feel sure that I remember the incident. Smells come back to me. The floor polish in school. That soup on the stove at home. But with other photos, I suspect it's my mother's version. I remember from her constant cycle of storytelling. I see images, but fear I'm conjuring them to fit my mother's nostalgia. All I can say for sure is this. My father didn't always drink. I have some clear and real memories of outings in the car when I was little, when my parents didn't argue, and when I wasn't afraid, or anxious, or confused. I remember that we went to the New Forest once to see the ponies. We stayed in a small hotel for a long weekend treat and went on outings every day. Walks and picnics. I enjoyed the ponies, but was a little bit scared as they had quite big mouths. I watched one chewing the grass and I could see huge teeth. Why don't you offer the pony a polo mint, Rachel? My father's my father's voice. No way! And I remember thinking the pony would have my hand off. I also remember my parents laughing, and I'm sure that picture is real. I can't be certain of my age. 6, maybe 7, I reckon. But I don't think my dad was drinking then. My mom was a nurse, a really good one. She specialized in premature babies and worked part-time when I was in primary school while my father worked in the car factory. It was a very ordinary and solid sort of start, I guess. We owned our little semi with a small garage and a small garden. My father worked hard and spent the weekends in the garden. And if you'd asked a little girl on that trip to the New Forest that if she was happy, she would have said yes, but she would like a sister, please, not a pony. And then things started to change. raised voices, more and more arguments. I don't know what triggered the change, but I would see my dad staying up late with a glass of scotch. He liked crystal glasses and expensive scotch. It upset my mom. Why don't you come to bed, love? This went on for a while, and then my dad lost his job. I learned much later that this was because of the drinking. I can only guess that towards the end of his time at the factory, he was what you would now call a functioning alcoholic. I didn't see him drunk back then. I saw him with a beer often. I saw him with those glasses of scotch. But I don't remember as a small child seeing him drunk, or difficult, or belligerent. That all came after he lost his job. I've never properly talked it through with my mom. I don't know why. I don't want to cause her more pain, or make her feel guilty. It wasn't her fault. It is not much point now, so I put all this together myself. I may have some of it wrong, but I do remember the creeping awareness of a dangerous change. It was like playing Jenga when someone has much too early removed the wrong blocks and made the tower prematurely unstable. You know it's all going to come down, but you just have to keep playing, moving ever so carefully. Bottom line, my father couldn't get another job, and so his drinking got much worse. He's no longer had to try to look sober to hang on to a job, so he didn't bother. My mother switched to a full-time work, taking on the night shifts for better pay. She also signed up with an emergency for extra weekend shifts, and so was hardly home. She explained all of this to me. She explained all of this to me, sitting on my bed before she left for work, whispering that the difficult time was temporary, and she hoped with all her heart that she could be home more very soon, that things would improve when Dad got a new job. He, meantime, became very argumentative and very bitter. He started to rant at the news on the telly, rant at the news in the newspapers, rant at anything and everything, and I started to see him drunk. A lot. They started to argue in the kitchen in the early evening when she was getting ready for work. I would be up on my bed, eyes wide and my hands over my ears, no idea what I was supposed to do. And that's when the battle and the humiliation over my packed lunches began. Mom didn't have time to make my lunch, and Dad insisted it was his job. She was obviously wary and said that she would find time, but it was because, like a red rag to a bull, an issue of pride. Don't you trust me? Are you saying I can't make a packed lunch for my daughter? Is that what you're saying? Hot lunches were expensive, and Mom made me a cooked meal before she left for her night shift, so a dangerous new routine was agreed. Dad was supposed to make my lunch boxes before he went to bed. I think I was around 8, so maybe I should have been more independent and stepped up to make them myself, but I didn't. My lunchbox became like this fuse, this ticking bomb. The trouble started with the small things. I would get to school and find that Dad has put something odd in. A lime instead of an apple. A can of sardines. People would laugh and I pretended it was a joke. That he did it deliberately to make me laugh. I started to check my packed lunch in the playground. If there was anything too weird, I'd chuck the whole contents in the bin. But I got caught and the teacher got the wrong end of the stick. Started to worry I had some kind of eating disorder. I then tried making my own sandwiches, but Dad got really loud. Has your mother been talking to you? Move out of the way. I make your lunch. I see now that it was never about the wretched sandwiches or the lunch, but something else entirely. And then we had that huge meltdown over the tea bag sandwiches. The final straw. The day I got it all wrong. Blew it. And Dad took it out of Mom, and everything in my world went all the wrong colors. Angry colors. That's it. I remember sitting up in my pink room with its pink bedspread and seeing only angry colors flashing around the walls as I heard the noises from the kitchen. Things smashing. Glass and pots, all the manner of things. I went down in my rabbit slippers and stood in the doorway. I was going to tell them that I would do my own lunch. I was sorry to cause this horrible argument. But my mother was crouched by the bin, all ready for work in her nurse's uniform. She was holding up her hands to try to protect herself, but I could see blood on the side of her face, and this terrible rage on my father's face. Go to your room, Rachel. Go to your room now. I don't let myself even look at this picture in my head very often. What's the point? It happened. It's over. I got it wrong. I told my mom about the tea bag sandwiches, you see. I caused the horrible argument, and I made the bad thing happen. I'm only thinking of it all now because I'm precisely the same feeling of dread, of fear, of confusion. The booming in my head and the palpitations in my chest. I suppose it's the reason I just don't feel that I can bear this or handle this. Looking at the photograph that Ed had sent me, I know that we're all in very big trouble. It's her. Sure, she's very much younger, but Laura is so distinctively tall and has such striking hair. That tree Raphaelite Titian hair? How could it not be her? The woman who was watching me on the drive, the woman who was stalking me outside the hairdresser's, and the woman who told me so weirdly, he's not who he says he is, was Laura. No mistake. She's here. I don't know why, and I don't know what she's capable of. All I know is that I need a way for D.I. Sanders and my husband to get here. I'm going to have to come clean about the P.I., and I feel all over again that the girl in the rabbit slippers who's who's hearing her whole world crashing around downstairs, with flashes of dark and horrible colors blocking all the sunlight from the room. Alright. Final chapter for the stream. Chapter 32. The Private Investigator. Matthew Hill's dribbling money on his toast when his mobile goes. He's feeling good. More relaxed today. Emily's counseling is going better than they dared hope. Sally's just back from dropping her at nursery. Just a morning session for now to see how it goes. Baby steps. It's a week since the shooting. He's not due at work until late morning and is hungry. His mobile's on the work surface alongside the coffee machine, and so he moves across the kitchen. Leave it. Have your breakfast. Sally tilts her head to the side as she tosses her car keys onto the worktop. Surely Mel can wait 5 minutes for you to have your breakfast. How do you know it's Mel? He glances at the screen. It's Mel. Sorry, gotta take this, he grins. Sally rolls her eyes as he clamps the mobile to his car, marching through the French doors to their patio, toast in hand. Matt, so sorry, but I need you earlier than we said. I've messed up. What do you mean, messed up? Honey's running down the side of the toast onto the middle finger of his right hand, the phone in his left. Excuse the noise. He bites into the toast to stop the honey trickling further. Eating toast here. I had to let Alex go. But I don't understand. Why? He's now chewing as fast as he can. Though Laura is their front runner now, Alex remains a suspect too. He got himself a good lawyer. Some new phone footage from the cathedral proved he was right at the other end, near the main door when Gemma was shot. He was with some friends. No gun. All verified. So he got bail? Yes, first thing. And why does that equal you messing up? Because he's now on top of a multi-story car park, threatening to jump unless the Hartley family agree to tell him whether Gemma's baby is his or not. Jeez. The car park in Lakes Lane. Meet you there? On my way. The traffic's bad, and by the time Matthew turns the corner into Lakes Lane, there's not only all the expected police activity, cordons, and uniformed presence, but ominously 2 satellite TV trucks. As he turns off the ignition, a new call comes in. Amanda at the university press office. Sorry to intrude, Matthew, but you said if I needed a return favor? Shoot, but you'll need to be quick. Crisis here. I'm getting media calls about Gemma Hartley, or rather her boyfriend. Suicide attempt. I'm saying nothing, obviously, but do you know what the hell's going on? I'm just going in to see the Chancellor. Can you help? At the scene right now. Can't talk, Amanda. I'll ring you back later. You know the drill. Say nothing to the media, please. Although, he lets out a breath as the camera crew gets out of the van directly in front of him. You may want to switch on your TV. He hangs up and marches to the barrier, showing his ID to the PC, who checks on his radio before letting him through. He's quickly met by one of Mel's sergeants, who leads the way to the car park's main stairwell. He's on the roof, 6 floors up. You can't see this side, but on the other side, he's got quite an audience in the office block opposite. We're working on getting that cleared. He's got a banner and loudhailer. Oh, and he's been in contact with the media. So I see. Mel's up there already, but she's waiting for you. So I'm guessing you're our official negotiator then? Matthew feels a surge of surprise. It hadn't occurred to him that Mel would cast him in this role. Sure, he did a course once. Sure, he's had a lucky break here and there, but the police normally use their own people. Also, the media wouldn't normally dream of covering a suicide attempt. What the hell is going on here? His mind suddenly in overdrive, shooting back in time. To that conference center. The course. You need to separate yourself from the team on the ground, especially the police. You need to connect with the target, just you two. Don't be a part of them. At the top of the stairwell, he finds Mel barking instructions into her mobile. She hangs up upon seeing him. I need to approach him from the other side, away from your team. Why? Trust me, Mel. Can I get round? She glances about. There's a route around here. You can skirt the top floor and approach from the west. Comms? No need. He can hear you fine. Be warned. He has a loudhailer. Small crowd. We're moving people back. And the TV crews? I've spoken to the newsrooms. Warned that if they go live, it could trigger him jumping. Strictly between us. My gut says he's doing this for the coverage and is unlikely to jump. But no way can we assume I'm right. We play this by the book, assuming he's 100% serious. Understood? Of course. For now, TV coverage is running edited footage only. We'll see if that holds. He emailed widely, so in theory he invited the media. Right. Let's see if he'll listen. Matthew sets off, sweeping around the row of cars on the western side of the top floor. He moves quietly from pillar to pillar. As he nears the front of the other side of the car park, he sees Alex, sitting on the concrete outer wall. There's some kind of banner spread out, with bricks positioned on the wall to keep it in place. It's handed over the edge, so Matthew can't see what it says. Alex has a loudhailer. Hey there, Alex. Hello. My name's Matthew, and I'm here to see what I can do to help you. So what's this all about? What's it you want today? You police? Alex swings his head, his eyes glaring. No, I'm not. But the police are here so I can pass on messages to them if you like. Alex turns his head back to the front. I have nothing to say to the police. Fine, that's absolutely fine. So what's going on, Alex? It's very windy up here. You look cold. Alex frowns. He moves his shoulders as if he's only just registered how cold he is. Would you like a blanket? A coffee? Shall I ask for that? Keep you a bit warmer and a bit more comfortable while we talk? Alex looks confused. Matthew is remembering his training. To keep the focus on the future. On normal needs. I don't want anyone coming near me. I don't want tricks. Alex's voice is clearly affected by the chilly wind. He's wearing just a shirt and jeans and is shivering. Matthew is worried that even if Mel is right and Alex isn't planning to jump, the cold could trigger an accident. I'll tell the police not to come anywhere near you. How about I send for that blanket and coffee? I put it to where you can reach it. I won't come too close, I promise. You'll be able to think more clearly if you're warmer, Alex. Then we can talk properly. Work out exactly how I can help you. Yes? Alex thinks for a while, then nods. Okay, I'm gonna take out my mobile and get those things for you. It's not okay. It's not a trick. Okay, Alex? Just my mobile. He nods again. Matthew takes out his mobile and rings Mel. A large blanket and coffee with sugar, please. Fast as you can, but leave it by the pillar behind me. Don't send anyone close. No uniforms. Understood. Matthew puts his phone back in his pocket. Right. The police have said yes, but I told them to stay back, okay? Alex nods again. Good. Whether he's acting or whether he's serious, Alex is starting to see Matthew as an intermediary. So what do you want here, Alex? What can I do to help you? A father has rights. Of course. So is that what this is all about? A child? Is that about a child, Alex? You know it is. You you know it is. The Hardleys won't talk to me. They won't let me see Gemma. And they won't do a paternity test. Matthew has to think fast on what to say here. No way can anyone sign off a paternity test while Gemma's in a coma. Alex is being totally irrational. It must be frustrating for you, not knowing where you stand. There's a long pause. Alex puts the loudhailer down alongside him on the wall and shuffles forward a little. You don't want to go near the edge, Alex. We need to talk some more. Work out what I can do to help here. You can't get what you want unless we talk. Now can you? A few moments pass. Matthew's heart is beating very fast. Is Mel's gut instinct right? Or is Alex serious here? Matthew hears a noise behind him and turns to see a uniformed officer place a blanket 2 pillars back. Right. The blanket's arrived. I'll fetch it. I expect the coffee will come soon, too. Matthew retreats to pick up the blanket and moves back to the wall to your left, Alex. Don't try to catch it. Sit very, very still where you are. I'm a good shot. Don't. Do you? Alex nods again. Matthew throws the blanket so it ends up over the wall, an arm's length from Alex. I don't want you to reach out, Alex. I want you to shuffle back, away from the edge, and then you can move more safely towards the blanket to your left. Is that okay with you? Yes. Alex does as he's asked. He shuffles back a little, and then moves bit by bit to the left to reach the blanket, which he quickly wraps around his shoulders. Good. That's good, Alex. Stay like that and wait and warm yourself up a bit. Alex is now in a much better position, nearer the back of the ledge, but Matthew's heart is still pounding. He glances at the opposite. He glances at the office block opposite. If he says the wrong thing, or gets the tone wrong, yeah, we don't need to think about that, because I'm pretty sure we all know where that's going. In any event, that is going to do it for me here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Next time, I don't know where a stopping point will be for this bit for part 3, but when I find it, I'll find it, okay? But in any event, thank you guys so much for watching this part 2 of my reading Her Perfect Family by Teresa Driscoll. If you guys are enjoying this book, like enjoy me listening to me read it, and you want to read it for yourself, even if I do stream, I would recommend this book. It's so far I'm enjoying it very much. So I would still say it's currently within the top 5 of my favorite books so far. But we're not all the way done yet, are we? No. We still got plenty of book to read. We still got plenty of book to read. In any event, that is going to do it for me here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, This is Forrest Walpole signing off.